everybody, how's it going? Welcome. So as you probably could tell by the title of the video and or the thumbnail, today I am with my good friend Chris from Treantmonk's Temple, and we're going to be breaking down the monk. Last week I did a video with Will from D&D Shorts, and we went over all the new UA stuff except the monk. Because Will was doing his own video on the monk separately, and he's like, let's do everything but that. I'm like, that's fine, because I really want to do a video talking about the monk with Chris, because Chris, as probably all of you watching know, is kind of famous for, saying that monks suck in D&D, and I'm going to link to your video over there in the corner. I think Zoom, we're recording this on Zoom, it's a little backwards. I usually point this way, but it's probably over there.
It's one of these two sides. And if you can't figure it out, I can't help you.
Yeah. So yeah, we're just gonna break down the monk. We're gonna do it in two parts. Part one here, where we'll just go over kind of the basic stuff of the monk base class, right? And then we'll talk about all the subclass details in part two that you'll be able to catch over on Chris's channel. And I'll link to it in the video description and hopefully here as well. So maybe before we jump in, I'll just mention, I'm still on vacation, obviously. The sound is probably terrible and echoey, and there's noise outside the window here. And we're not gonna we haven't scripted this, right? We're just kind of.
I don't even know what your opinions on this new monk are yet.
Yeah, you know what?
We have not talked about that. All we talked about is that we were going to do this.
Yeah.
But
that could be surprising for both of us.
I think the plan is we're just going to have an informal chat, and we're going to discuss our opinions on the new thing. And I will be referring to notes that are over here. So when I'm looking over here, it's me looking at my notes.
And when I'm playing, it looks like I'm playing with my computer here. It's because I'm tabbing between the things that I've written and probably the PDF and stuff like that. So yeah, not a lot of editing here. Buckle up for just kind of a conversational fireside chat with a couple of friends. And maybe quickly, I have to believe that 99.9% of my audience knows who you are, Chris, but for the 5 of them watching that maybe aren't familiar with you, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. My name's Chris, and I run a channel called Treantmonk's Temple. And I used to do more builds than I do these days. I still do some builds, but I do a lot of rules analysis. That's kind of my thing, is D&D rules analysis. And I like to do math, right, and show math on the screen. And so if you're an ultra nerd, then my channel would probably be of interest to you.
Absolutely. And I will say again, for those who may not know, I probably watch more of your videos than any other YouTuber, I would say. Maybe the Dungeon Dudes, you guys are kind of my main go-tos. And there's others,
I'm a YouTube subscriber to one channel, and that is yours.
Wow. Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I am so flattered.
Yeah. Not subscribe. I mean, a membership.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
still,
the paid membership.
Even more flattered. And for those who don't know this, when I was still very new in the YouTube world, right? This was 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, and I'd only been doing it for a few months, and Chris just straight up reached out to me, as opposed. Usually it's the little guy is hey, somebody want to do a collaboration with me? Chris, whose channel was 3 times my size, reached out to me and he's hey, do you want to do a collaboration? I was oh, Treantmonk's Temple wanted to do a video with me. I was so excited. And
it was fun.
It was fun. Yeah. We did a rune night, dual build, we each built a rune night. You can check that one out here too, if you haven't seen that. And it was really instrumental, I think, into kind of launching me a little bit. My subscriber count really started to increase a lot more from that date. So I'm going to attribute that to you. Thank you.
I'll take that. That. I don't necessarily agree, but I'm not going to argue it.
All right. Well, Let's jump in. So the monk, we had a little outline of note. You kind of put together a little outline of kind of topics.
Yeah.
So why don't we just follow that? I'm going to pull it up here in front of me so I don't forget. So yeah, we're going to start off with our opinions on the 2014 monk. I like this.
Yeah.
Thematically and mechanically, and what were we hoping for in terms of revision? You wanna start us off there?
I certainly can. Okay, so you said I'm famous for my opinions on the monk. Infamous might be more appropriate. But let me start with the mechanics. So first off, in terms of the thematics for the monk, I think that the D&D mechanics for ability scores just isn't well suited to those thematics. Because the thematics involve like combining mental and physical discipline.
Mhm.
And if you had a system that was softer on ability scores or less mechanically rigid for determining how strong, agile, and mentally disciplined your character is, or a system where maybe those things are built into the class rather than separate from the class, I think it could work a lot better. D&D isn't that system. The next is key. I do not like the mechanics for key. Nothing has its own resource pool for the monk. Everything uses key. So you end up with players who spend up all their key on stunning strikes. So they have all these cool tricks and they don't get used at all.
Yeah.
Right? So why even have them? They aren't dodging as a bonus action or throwing back the arrows they deflect or using the other subclass features, because subclass features also all use the key, and it's just not affordable. Also, the monk ends up being probably the most short rest dependent class in the game.
Yeah,
maybe the warlock.
Even.
Yeah, but it's definitely between those two. My next issue with them is level 11. Level 11, fighters getting an extra attack. Your spellcasters are getting into those special spells that aren't replaceable, right?
World changing.
Yes, monks get a scaling of the martial arts die, and it just does not compare. So it probably helps with their unarmed strikes, but it's a D6 to a D8, so even their weapon attack probably isn't increasing in damage.
Right.
And they were already struggling at level 5, but level 11 monks really collapse.
Yeah.
My next issue with the monk is their relationship with feats. Most weapon users get big benefits from the combat feats. Monks do not. You already have bonus action attacks, so the pole arm master doesn't do much for you. No heavy weapons means you can't use great weapon master. Premier feats for weapon users, they just don't pay off for monks the same way they do for other warriors. Right. And they just end up with less offensive potential than all the other weapon users in the game. My next issue with them is defense. Monks should be better defensively. I think thematically, they should be hard to hit. They are not hard to hit. They are easy to hit. They shouldn't be easy to hit. Unarmored defense is not good enough. And it sure isn't helped by having D8 hit points. Though I think if their armor class was better, they could get away with the D8 hit points. They have deflect missile, but only works against one kind of attack and one attack per turn. So you get hit with 2 arrows, tough, right? This whole idea of it doesn't happen. D&D doesn't let you do it. Evasion is good. Yeah. Evasion is a good defense.
And their level 14 feature is good. Proficiency in all saving throws.
Yes, that is
level
good
14, right?
But yeah, the one is very high level, and the other one it's just against a small percentage of the type of damage you'd take. But yes, it feels great playing a monk and you get fireball. That's great. It's like, keep those fireballs coming. And I could go on.
Yeah.
But if I was to talk about what my wish list is, those are my sticking points. Sure. We have several examples in the game already where there is increased synergy between ability scores, right? We have charisma-based weapon attacks. We have wisdom added to charisma checks. I would like for the monk to have some way to do this to marry wisdom and dexterity a little bit. Or ease with attack rolls, or dexterity to somehow help with wisdom-based checks, just to ease the pain of having those 2 ability scores you have to focus on. I want a resource system where everything doesn't feed off the same resource pool and remove the short rest requirements. I want some kind of significant boost at level 11 for something. I don't care what, just something. I want combat feats that work as well for the monk as other classes. And finally, I want some kind of significantly improved defense options. So
Okay.
that's my opinion on the current monk and what I would like to see.
I think that's a good wish list. It's funny. I don't, and I haven't put together as meticulous notes as you. Being on vacation, I've just kind of been like thinking about it and have some things that I think I want to say. But I was going to add, it's interesting how you, I think, like we've talked about, have been famous or infamous for saying that monks suck in D&D, and I think backing that up with a lot of good evidence. And I think my take has generally been, I don't want to say an apologist, but like I love monks so much. They're my favorite class in the game conceptually. And the ones that I always want to play more than any other class. And it may be, too much of me loving this fantasy of like the Kung Fu warrior kind of thing, a crouching tiger, hidden dragon, or even Kung Fu Panda for that matter, if you want to go there. Or
Kill Bill.
Yeah, sure. And I hope I don't get too much into, cultural appropriation there with my, thinking and wishing. But I think that Wizards of the Coast did really a pretty good job with the monk in 5e of hitting on the feel, that feel that I'm looking for, the slow fall, the being able to run across water and up vertical surfaces, the deflect arrows and be able to throw it back, unarmored defense, feeling like with flurry of blows you're making a lot, you're making maybe 4 attacks per turn, which is a lot. You do that motorcycle?
I heard something.
Okay.
You kind of cut in and out, so I think Zoom tried to correct it.
Anyway, and so I appreciated that, but then, and so I think for the last almost 3 years now, I've done so many monk builds, and it's always with this attempt to like make them viable, and I think that you can, if you get creative and if you do a lot of multi-classing, typically, right? Make it so that you can build something that works and arguably even works pretty well. But it's true that they scale poorly, mechanically speaking, especially. And I won't argue that. And that you really do kind of have to multi-class with them in order to try and keep up with what other classes could probably do without multi-classing, or at least get close to it. So all of the things that you talked about, I really agree with. I don't know that I have a lot to add as far as
I get
struggles
comments
with the mechanics.
I get comments on videos
Yeah.
where they'll talk about how you and I have opposite opinions on monks, and I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. I think we have the same. Well, I think we have the exact same opinion on monks. We see a concept that we kind of like and have frustrations.
Yeah.
That you can't build a straight monk and fulfill that concept the way that we envision it. And I've been more vocal about my frustrations about it, but I do think we're basically on the same page, right?
I think you're right. And like all of that said, even though for the last almost 3 years I've done a ton of monk builds, and very often, or maybe all the time in those builds, I'm always like, isn't this cool? Wouldn't this be awesome? Oh, this works really great if you do it like this and you combine it with that and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I do still have this frustration with the what feels to be lacking, things that are lacking with the class mechanically. And I have a feeling that I might be more negative today than you. And this is a hunch that could be wrong based on our initial conversations. So I guess we'll see if that's true. But when I got the UA, spoiler alert, and read through it, I was just like, I feel like I'm losing my optimism. I'm running out of juice to be like the champion for the class when it just didn't get
Yeah. Well,
what it
like I
needed.
said, we
But,
didn't discuss it, so we have not discussed this yet.
yeah.
I will say this is not what I was hoping for.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm wrong then. Well,
Uh,
okay.
yeah. Yes. We'll get into specifics, but this was a disappointment.
So yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say in terms of revision, what I was hoping for is similar to you, like better scaling damage, I guess, better defense, and a way to make the things that they have that are potentially powerful, like Stunning Strike, more reliable, even if it came at the cost of being a little less powerful. And I don't know that we got much, if any, of that.
I got basically nothing of what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
And there were things I thought were in the bag that were taken away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just things I thought the monk was really going to benefit from that now they don't. And only because they made appropriate changes to make sure they didn't. It was to say that it is disappointing is an understatement, because there were certain things that I just did not expect that they did to undercut this monk.
So let's jump into the details then and talk about those specifics. Do you want to go through the base class kind of point by point, or do you want to talk about, like, here's the things that we like about it, and then here's the things that we're frustrated by?
I'm open to either.
Okay.
We could do a quick list of like the big changes, I guess, if
Sure.
if you want.
Yeah, sure.
I actually have a list here.
All right. Read them out.
So key points are now called discipline points. Otherwise, they're the same.
And I'm already going to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have too many things to say. This video is going to be long, I'm sure. Why do you think they did this? The switching key from switching from key to discipline, and getting rid of the way of the whatever.
Or they didn't tell
warrior.
us. They told the people who went to the Creator Summit.
No, we didn't.
That
we
the
didn't
reason
get
they were
invited.
the reason they changed it is because key is connected to Eastern philosophy or something like that, and they wanted it to be more generic.
Okay.
So discipline points could be key or chi,
Sure.
or it could be something else.
Sure.
Discipline is a little
trying to-
long. They could have gone with focus points or
Yeah,
something, I guess.
yeah.
Or
Trying to get away from skirting that line of cultural appropriation.
well,
I'm sure.
and I think it's partially so that your monk doesn't necessarily have to be just this one thing, right? So
sure, it doesn't have to be.
you
like
have a different
Kung Fu
concept for a
master.
monk, then you're
Sure.
not. Yeah. I don't care. It's a mechanic.
Yeah.
But it's changed. The martial arts die is improved by one die type, so it starts at D6 and it now scales to D12, but it only applies to unarmed strikes now.
Mm-hmm.
There are no more monk weapons. Monk weapons don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Monks are proficient with all simple weapons. They can use dexterity for any simple weapon that doesn't have the two-handed property, and they can use stunning strike with any simple weapon. You get the bonus action unarmed strike after making the attack action with an unarmed strike or a simple weapon. The monk selects 2 simple weapons at level 1, and they can use the weapon mastery property for those 2 weapons. They can switch them out after a long rest. This does not scale like other warrior classes.
Right.
Step of the Wind used to give you the choice of either the disengage or dash action. You now get both. Deflect missiles now works against any ranged attack that delivers bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, and you can redirect it with no size restriction on the missile. At 13th level, you can use Deflect Missile or Deflect Energy on any ranged attack, regardless of the damage type. Stunning Strike can only be used once per turn, and it only lasts until the start of the monk's next turn. Since it can be applied after hitting with any simple weapon, it can now be delivered on a ranged attack. Empowered Strikes now gives you the option of delivering force damage with unarmed strikes instead of having them treated as magical. Evasion no longer works if you're incapacitated. Heightened Metabolism provides you the benefits of a short rest after 1 minute of resting once per long rest. I believe that's at 9th level. 7th level. Stillness of mind and purity of body are gone. Instead, at 10th level, you get self-restoration, which allows the monk to use a bonus action to remove the charmed, frightened, or poisoned condition from themselves, and they don't get exhausted from forgoing food and drink. Diamond Soul is now called Disciplined Survivor. At 15th level, you regain 4 discipline points when you roll initiative if you have used all your discipline points. This is the old capstone, but they just moved it to 15th level.
Yeah.
At 18th level, Superior Defense replaces Empty Body. It's now a bonus action. It used to be an action, and it costs 3 discipline points. It used to cost 4, but you don't become invisible, and you can't cast Astral Projection, which is no big deal.
Right.
And the capstone is now Defy Death. When you drop to 0 hit points, you can spend 4 discipline points, and then you roll 4 martial arts dice and heal that amount. Each time you use the feature, costs 2 additional points until you finish a short or long rest, which resets it. And I think that's all the changes.
That's the changes for the base class.
Yeah.
So let me ask you if this is okay. Would you be okay if we went through like every change and just kind of talked about each briefly? Hopefully briefly. Some of them might be more than briefly.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Because I don't have a lot of positive things to say here. And I kind of feel bad. I don't want, if there's anybody from Wizards of the Coast watching this, like, I hope they're not angry or sad about that. You know, I'm not personally attacking anybody. I just feel like maybe my overall impression, and we've kind of already got at this a little bit, but is that Monk, I think maybe especially since Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, where Rangers got some nice improvements, I think it's pretty safe to say that most people in the D&D community would agree that Monk is probably the weakest class in the game. I
haven't done a poll.
That's right. I've seen some polls that seem to confirm that, but
maybe and I definitely see, like, when I first released that video, no one was saying the monks was nobody.
Yeah.
And I do now start to see it being referenced as the worst class by more and more people. So it is definitely, and I think I'd be shocked for anyone to say that this playtest monk isn't the worst of all the playtest classes. It would be absolutely astounding, and I'd want to hear some reasoning.
Right.
Because not only do I think it's the worst of the playtest classes, I don't think they improved it at all.
Yeah, right.
Every single chance they had to make it better in any way, they backstepped. Every single one.
Yeah, it's like they have this class that is like, surely they have to know. They have to know that, like, it's really lacking, right? In a lot of important ways. And they just went at it with like such timidity. It seems to me like
there was some stuff. Okay, let's start going through the stuff, because there's some stuff that it's not just they're being timid,
but
it's that
retracting.
We're going to make this change to the monk to screw them out of this thing, right? Like stuff that makes me angry.
Yeah. Okay, so martial arts die. Increasing the martial arts die from a D4 at level 1 to a D6. Basically, they increase it by 1 level throughout, right? So yes, as many people will point out, that's an average of 1 more damage per unarmed strike. So potentially 2 more damage, on unarmed strikes. I think, as you've kind of
on unarmed strikes.
Yeah, it doesn't work now with weapons because it's not a martial arts die, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So is that a buff? It's more like
it is a
grade.
slap in the face. Here's why. Because the promise of the warrior classes was weapon mastery.
Yeah.
And then you take the martial arts die away from weapons and you say, well, hey, you can get this bigger martial arts die, or you can get a D4 or a D6 plus weapon mastery. And so they take that promise away from you. And now with a scaling martial arts die, it actually does make a difference. When I get to 11th level, a D10 is more than I can do with any simple weapon.
Right.
So essentially, it's like, if you want to use this special thing that we're giving to warriors, we're going to punish you for it.
Yeah, they needed to, they need to make, for monks only, right? weapon masteries work on unarmed strikes, I think.
They absolutely needed to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, I might even settle for just at least give it to the open hand monk, but they really probably need to give it to all monks.
I would not settle for that. I would not settle for that. I would settle for them saying not until level 5. Right. At level 5, you can pick one of these weapon masteries for your unarmed strikes, and then at level 11, we're going to give you 2 weapon masteries with your unarmed strikes, and you choose which one to do when you strike.
Sure.
Right, like the fighter does. Right. That's what it should have been. They should have grays. They can't get grays.
Yeah.
How does the monk not get grays?
Yeah. Or even Nick, or like.
Well, they can get Nick, but
Trip.
you're using a D4 weapon.
Right.
Or is there a D6? There might be a D6 weapon. It's and one way or the other. You're no, it's a D4. You're using the D4 weapon to get Nick. Yeah.
So that is super frustrating, and it's something that I hope that they'll change after getting some feedback. I guess we'll see. Sorry, I was going to add this: the removal of the dedicated weapon feature, right, that we got with Tasha's. That's so punishing, because at least before we could potentially
get a D10.
Yeah, use a longsword, versatile, or a warhammer, or a battle axe, or whatever.
Well, and that's another thing. You're only using simple weapons, so the most damage you can get is a D8. Now, if you use a great club, you have to use strength because it's a 2-handed weapon. That means that the only D8 weapons that you can get for melee are the spear or the quarterstaff, which are versatile. And if you take weapon mastery for them, you get flex, which doesn't give you anything if you're using it with 2 hands. Yeah. So you get screwed out of that too. Like, it's just astounding the ways they came up with to screw the monk out of weapon mastery.
Yeah.
They just basically get cut out of it. It's or they're using D4 or D6 weapons.
They're taking a downgrade to their damage in order to take advantage of it. Okay, so big miss there, I think, on Wizard's
huge
part.
Miss.
So let's talk about key points, because I think I was definitely anticipating that they were going to do something to give more discipline points. That's probably I think the most common complaint that people make about monks, right, is that especially at those early levels, you don't get enough key points, or like you've said, you need key for everything. So like, if you're going to keep the discipline points, key points the same, fine, give us another resource, or don't make everything require key points to be used. But they didn't change that at all. They could have said, okay, monk level plus your wisdom modifier or something, and we got that cool level 7 feature that lets you take a short rest
which I do like.
It's great.
I like that feature.
It's great. But we get it at level 7, which is about the time that you don't worry about your key points quite so much.
I'm still worrying about my key points at level 7. So I'll take it at level 7, but good. I agree it should be earlier.
It needs to be at level 2.
It's also a patch for something that I'll take, but it's not the fix I was looking for.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping that we might see something like the discipline points or key points go down, but you get them all at the beginning of every fight. Right? Sure. So you have 5 discipline points to spend. You roll initiative, you got 5 discipline points to spend. And if you don't spend them, no big deal. You get them all back at the beginning of the next fight. That's what I thought, because, they bent over backwards to make it so that the warlock didn't have short rest recovery.
Right.
And then nothing.
Right.
With the monk. Nothing.
Right. And now, especially if warlock goes through sort of as planned, right? Monks are going to be like the only ones that after every fight are going to be like, guys, we got to take a short rest. Please, we got to take a short rest.
And that's worse. That is worse than what we have now. Yeah.
Okay, so that was a frustrating thing. Talk about weapon mastery.
How do you feel about, this is one I want to bring up.
Yeah.
Monks are proficient with all simple weapons. They can use dexterity for any simple weapon that doesn't have the 2-handed property. You can use stunning strike with any simple weapon, and you get the bonus action unarmed strike after making the attack action with an armed strike or simple weapon. What do you feel about that?
I mean, maybe I haven't thought about it enough. I guess I would say
I'm
that
gonna make you think about it right now.
it doesn't feel all that different to me than what we have. So what am I missing?
Yeah. Okay. Let me. So we're
Enlighten
going
me,
in a
Chris.
different order than I expected, but all right. Okay. So what the new monk? Of course, we have new feats, right? What feats are you thinking for your monk?
None. I'm just gonna bump my dexterity and wisdom.
When I saw the expert feats, and I saw like the charger feat.
Yeah.
I think that might be good on a monk. Tough, you can't have it. You took away short sword proficiency. How about the sentinel feat?
That's a
Tough, you can't have it because we took away the short sword proficiency.
Yeah.
Great weapon master, dual wielder, mage slayer, polearm master, mountain combatant, sentinel, sharpshooter, crossbow expert, charger. All of them have one prerequisite: you must be proficient in any martial weapon. And when I saw those, I thought, that's weird, right? Like, why is it that with polearm master, you don't have to be proficient in a polearm? You just have to be proficient in any one martial weapon. And why is it crossbow expert? You don't have to be proficient in a crossbow. You just have to be proficient in any one martial weapon. Like, what's the purpose of that? Yeah. Then we saw the short sword move from the simple weapon or martial weapon to become a simple weapon, then to become a martial weapon. I'm like, what are they doing with this? Like, what is the point of this? I now have a suspicion this was all a way to screw the monk out of the good feats. How do we make sure that the monk can't get the good feats? Yeah. Well, if we make everything require a martial weapon proficiency, then they can't get it.
And take away the dedicated weapon.
They have short sword. They have short sword. That's no good. Well, what if we made it a simple weapon? Then it wouldn't qualify. Or we could just take away short sword. You know, like it was like that. That conversation must have happened.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Because the thing is like I said, there were some things I thought were in the bag. Weapon mastery being a boon for monks, I thought was in the bag before I ever saw this playtest. That the feats were now more sympathetic to the monk, I thought was in the bag. But they no longer give you weapon proficiencies with your species, right? That's all been taken away in the playtest. No first level feat gives you any weapon proficiency, so you can't get around it that way. There's no way to do it other than to multiclass out of monk. Yeah. If you want to play a straight class monk, you have to take there's weapon master, which is a 4th level feat, which means you can't take these other feats at 4th level. Right. So it is a screw job that is so subtle, but so insidious. Like, it's just rotten. And again, the feats working for the monk was in the bag, and they found a way to screw you out of it. So yeah, do you still think I'm not as upset?
No, I don't. I'm glad that I like playing the glass half full guy. So now I'm like looking for things that I can say that are good about it, but I'm not going to have a lot. Yeah. Anyway.
So anyway, anyone watching this, it's not obvious that taking away the short sword proficiency screws the monk this bad, because you're thinking, I wasn't going to use a short sword anyway. But it does. It does, unless they either change these feats or put the short sword back. So when you're filling out your surveys, just be aware that they did this to the monk.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. They combined disengage and dash for Step of the Wind. Yeah. So now you can spend a key point in a bonus action to disengage and dash. That's good, right?
You know, although I don't think it's enough, on the upside, this the silver lining of this one is at least they recognize that was the weakest option.
Yes.
Right? No, but that's something.
Rogues can do this for free.
Rogues can do it for free. At least they get something more than the rogue now, because they can do them both.
Sure.
This isn't enough. No, it should have been for free.
It's not.
But I will give them credit that at least of those 3 options, they knew which one needed buffing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Deflect missile. Okay, so let me talk about the damage here, and maybe this is too nitty-gritty, but now, before, if I'm not mistaken, it would do martial arts die, Wasn't it plus your dex mod? Am I wrong there?
I didn't think it had changed.
Now it's saying 2 times your martial arts die. So,
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, let me look at this really quick.
I thought it was a D10 plus something. What did I think? A D10? Yeah, D10 plus dexterity modifier plus monk level. And I think that's the same.
No, that's reducing the damage. I'm talking about when you throw it back.
Oh, when you throw it back.
So you're spending a discipline point, and you choose a creature within 60 feet of you. Now it's not a weapon attack. They have to succeed on a dex save, or take damage equal to 2 rolls of your martial arts die,
rather than 1 roll for your martial arts die plus your dexterity.
Right. Yeah, so depending on your dexterity and depending on the enemy's armor class versus their dexterity saving throw, like that's not necessarily a buff. I remember, I feel like Jeremy Crawford in the video was talking about that, like we increased the damage on deflect missile.
No, I don't buy that. Yeah. I don't buy
maybe
that.
Maybe if it did half damage on a save, but it doesn't. So...
In my general experience, things that give you a saving throw, more creatures make their saving throw than you miss.
Right. Right. Yeah. Sure. Depending on the save, maybe, but yeah. Generally speaking, for sure.
And yeah, the damage is going to be pretty similar. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a huge deal either way. It just seemed like a strange change to me.
And no one's going to do it. Because who's going to spend a discipline point on this?
You need the discipline points.
Yeah, it's one of those things that because of the system doesn't get used, which is too bad because it's kind of cool. Right?
Because Stunning Strike, right? So let's talk about Stunning Strike. I think this is maybe an area that we've probably had a little bit of a different opinion on, maybe a little bit. I think I remember hearing you say once in a video, and I don't remember when it was or which video for that matter, but I think I remember you saying that the power of Stunning Strike was equivalent to like a 1st level spell or something like that.
Yeah, that I've said, I've either said exactly that or something to that regard.
Sure.
I would consider it somewhat similar to a 1st level spell in terms of power.
Yeah. And I think I probably might say, well, I want to make it a little better than that. In my mind, it's maybe a little better than that. I don't know if it's a lot better than that.
2nd level spell?
That maybe. I mean, Hold Person paralyzes, but it only works on humanoids. But then it lasts longer.
Yeah, it's we're comparing a little bit of apples and oranges, right? Sure. So, if somebody said, it's more like a 2nd level spell, you wouldn't have to twist my arm too hard.
Yeah. The thing that was frustrating about it, the most frustrating thing about it is the con save, right? And if they make their con save, it does nothing. Mm-hmm. And you've spent the key point for nothing, right? So you hear things, people say like, well, how about if they make the save, you get the key point back, or make it a different saving throw. Or...
I thought when I saw the dazed condition, I thought that was the obvious fix, especially when we saw the earlier draft of the Paladin have a partial on a fail. You Stunning Strike. If they fail, they're stunned. If they make it, they're dazed. Right.
And that might be kind of what I was, a great example of something I was hoping for, right?
I thought like that would happen.
I like Stunning Strike. It feels quintessentially monk, right? To me. And it's like, but yeah, it's this thing where it's like either really good or totally worthless and like nothing in between. And you can see Wizards of the Coast trying to get rid of that, right? Getting rid of changing Quivering Palm, which we talk about in part 2.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is either amazing or worthless. Well, not worthless because they were still taking some damage, but anyway. And they wanted to get rid of that. They're getting rid of, the rogue assassination feature on the assassin rogue, where it's like, if you have surprise, this is fantastic, but you don't have surprise all that often, so you know what I mean. So they seem to be getting rid of that stuff. Great. Make Stunning Strike, even if you need to reduce the power of it a little bit, let it do something more reliable. So sure, change it so that it only lasts until the beginning of your turn instead of the end of your turn. And by the way, nobody seems to be talking about that in stuff that I'm seeing. People are complaining about that you can only use it once per turn, but I don't see anybody talking about how it ends at the beginning of your turn.
Really?
That's
okay, because that's because that's the thing is you hit it and you're like, wow, wait till next turn.
Exactly. At least you know. I just spent all of my key points stunning
Yeah.
this monster, and it finally, on my last flurry of blows unarmed strike, it stuck. Awesome. Okay, next turn I'm going to have advantage on all my attacks. No, it's like, no, no, you
Yeah.
don't.
No, and if they had done the dazed as a partial,
Yeah,
I think
then
I'd be
sure,
okay
once a
with the once
turn.
per turn,
Absolutely.
and I think I'd be okay even with the beginning of your next turn, because then you could free disengage,
Yeah,
right? That'd be
yeah,
something, and then they're
yeah,
going to have a reduced options on their next turn,
yeah,
which is going to help your defense. So would it, even if they succeed, you get something good out of it.
yeah.
But yeah,
And so it's just odd to me that because okay, I got to be careful here. There are I do see a lot of comments in my own videos. You've probably seen the same, where people will watch your video and then they'll come on and be like, "What are you talking about? Monks are so overpowered. Stunning Strike is broken. My player, just kept my BBEG stun locked until from 100 to 0 because of Stunning Strike, and they're the most broken class in the game and stuff." And of course, we and I think a lot of people in the community are like, like it has that potential, but it's rare because of the Constitution saving throw, right? And
yeah,
because of
yeah.
your limited key points. And it
Those people
almost
don't watch
feels
my
like
videos,
well, they do, and then they comment, and then they don't watch any more
and
of
then
your
they don't
videos.
watch anymore. Yeah.
um, it seems like everyone at Wizards of the Coast maybe like subscribe to that theory that just like Stunning Strike is too powerful, we need to nerf it, and that's all. Like that's all.
Yeah, the desire to have Stunning Strike once per turn, I can get behind, but then you need to somehow improve Stunning Strike, not make it weaker. In addition to
Maybe
that,
maybe this is a hidden buff because they
because of the
knew
ranged.
that we were going to blow all of our key points on Stunning Strike and it wasn't going to work anyway. So now they're just keeping us from wasting all of our key points.
You and I might have a different definition of what qualifies as a buff. This option isn't any good anymore. Buff!
It's better. Therefore, so that I don't waste all
Because
my key
it's not the
points.
automatic pick anymore. Yeah, and then what's your opinion on you being able to Stunning Strike with a long or a short bow?
I mean, like, if this stays and goes through to live, well, I don't know. Nobody's gonna play a monk anymore. But if they did, and if I did, I would definitely try and build around that. I'd try and find a way to build around it.
I would agree, and that's why I don't like it.
Because it feels like
I
now you gotta be
I don't
making
want
ranged.
yeah
You gotta be a ranged monk.
and I don't want to feel like I like the idea of ranged being viable for a monk, but I don't want to feel like that's the option.
Yeah. And maybe, I wonder if they were like, well, yeah, we've made these nerfs, but we've buffed it by making it so that it works on ranged
And that's
attacks
possible.
now.
That's possible.
And it's like, could you not do that and just keep it how it was? And
yeah, it's like they buffed Smite by letting it go, and that was received so well.
I was actually looking forward
Hey,
to
if it
doing
doesn't
a
work the
ranged
first
paladin
time,
build.
let's try the same thing again. Maybe we'll get a different response.
Shoot. Okay, so what else do we got here? Stunning Strike we talked about. Empowered. Oh, this is maybe so small that it's not worth mentioning. You might disagree, but so Empowered Strikes, changing that to force damage now as opposed to magical bludgeoning, right, is a nerf. That I feel like that needs to be said. It's not a big one.
I mean, I predicted this a while ago, because we see it with everything. And basically, my assumption is that as we see monster design in the future, resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage is going to be gone.
Yeah.
And they'll either have resistance to those damage types or they won't.
Yeah. I should probably withhold claiming that it's a nerf until we see the new monster manual. For all I know, they're gonna do more with vulnerability. I really hope they do.
here's how it's a nerf. If you are using the old feats, something like Crusher doesn't work with force damage.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
But I mean, in terms of reliability, force is pretty good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not anything that I'm too worried about, especially until we see, an updated monster manual. Okay. We got heightened metabolism. We've kind of talked about.
I like that.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. It is.
Yeah.
It is awesome. And I think it comes too late.
I would say give it to them at level 5.
Okay.
Because I honestly think a level 1 through 4 monk isn't that bad.
No.
But level 5, well, actually, this monk is pretty bad for levels 1 through 4 now, because they got screwed out of weapon mastery.
Yeah, you don't get a long sword anymore.
Yeah. But it used to be that they were okay. You switch some other things around, and heightened metabolism would be fine at 5th.
What do you think about self-restoration? This is so they moved stillness of mind from 7 to 10, right? Mm-hmm. Which kind of sucks, but as you have oft pointed out in the past, I think, that ability wouldn't let us necessarily end a charmed or frightened condition on ourselves, because oftentimes we're under the effect of something that doesn't give us control over our actions, right? So tell me what you think.
All right, so I support it being a bonus action as opposed to an action. Mm-hmm. Because if you do have the ability to use your actions the way you want, it feels bad to just lose your turn.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you give me a bonus action and then I can take the rest of my turn and at least do an action, that feels a lot better. So I'll take it. However, it definitely has a problem. If you are dominated, then you're not spending your bonus action either to end the charm condition on yourself.
Right.
And, as much as I hate everything being tied to discipline points, maybe it should be no action and spend a discipline point at the start of your turn and
just end the condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And then, of course, there's the whole thing about we used to be just flat out immune to poison and disease. Yeah. Now we gotta take a bonus action.
You don't even get resistance to poison damage anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're gonna take additional damage potentially. We've lost some defensive capability, and now we have to spend a bonus action just to remove poison that could just get applied again next turn.
Yeah,
nothing of disease.
I'm okay with moving away from immunities. I'm okay with it. I can see a reason to do it.
Yeah.
But at least give them resistance to poison damage.
Yeah.
At least give them resistance to poison damage, and maybe advantage on saving throws against becoming poisoned.
Yeah.
Or something. It's a pretty big nerf.
Yeah.
Because immunity to poisoned was one thing the monk got that was good.
It's like and poison damage is fairly common, right?
Yep.
So yeah, that was nice for sure. I've told the story many times on my channel about playing what's the Tiamat?
Tyranny of Dragons.
Tyranny of Dragons, yeah, and spoiler alert, you fight Tiamat in the end, or at least a shadow of her or whatever. And
I think there's 2. It's Tyranny of Dragons and Horde of the Dragon Queen.
Yeah, the Horde of the Dragon Queen. The Rise of Tiamat and Horde of the Dragon Queen, I think together are called
Tyranny of Dragons is the whole thing, right?
Yeah. Anyway, my DM was kind of unluckily rolling and deciding that the green dragon head was constantly attacking my monk character, and I was constantly not taking any damage. You could see him get very frustrated by that, and I felt awesome. And I was like, see, monks are good.
Well,
it was my first 5e character, so I didn't know
that feature is good.
Any better. It was.
That feature is good, right? And when it comes up, it's huge.
Okay, they got rid of Timeless Body, and that's great because that was pretty useless. Who cares? And moved, the previous capstone up to 15, so that's nice, right? I mean,
That capstone sucks.
It did.
It's an awful capstone. Here's what needs to happen there.
But it's better than what we had at 15.
No, it's an insult. Get it off the page. Here's what you need to do. Get rid of the phrase at the end that says you have to be depleted on key for it to work.
Sure.
You roll initiative, you get 4 key. Boom,
there
done.
You go. Yeah, I mean, the problem, and maybe you'll agree with me.
Design.
Maybe you'll agree with me this time. By level 15, we're probably not that worried about key points anymore most of the time, right?
Yeah.
So
I would hope.
yeah, so it's like,
So then it's
okay,
useless.
yeah,
So then
so I get more
so then
key,
it's a
but
promise that doesn't deliver.
yeah,
Yeah.
at
No,
least if
give me
you
4 discipline points back, you greedy Wizards of the Coast designers. Give me my 4 discipline points at the
just
start
give
of
them to
combat.
me. I'm level 15.
I have 1 discipline point left. Oh no!
Too bad. That's true, actually. I didn't think about that. It's like,
Yeah, you don't even
before
get
combat
up to
breaks
4.
out, if you have fewer than 4 key points, you better spend them before you get into
It's
a
just
fight.
awful design, and they decided we need a different capstone, but let's preserve the lousy one. We'll put it elsewhere. It's just so to remind players about
To
this.
haunt them with
To
the
haunt
monk
them.
of Christmas past. Oh,
It's
that's
like they're
funny.
trolling us, right?
Oh, that's good. Okay, we gotta keep moving. So why nerf empty body? Was it really
Well,
overpowered?
is it nerfed?
They had to remove invisibility because monks were too strong and abusing this feature all the time. I don't know. So, well, tell me what you think.
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like,
It's
it's
a
nerfed
side
in some
grade.
ways. Like, you don't get the invisibility condition, but it's a bonus action now to activate, so you don't
Yeah.
lose your turn.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Losing
true.
that round 1, like empty body, I didn't like it because you on round 1 you do nothing.
Yeah.
Right now you can do something on round 1 and still get the resistance to the damage. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I don't think, and I'm not sure I buy it's a nerf. It's
Okay.
nerfed in some ways and boosted in a very important other way.
And I mean, they do give you, well, okay, so with Defy Death,
It's better than the old capstone.
it's better than the old capstone.
Yeah, if that's the bar, they achieved it. They have cleared the bar. But it's not great, but I could see it coming up.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
To me, it feels a little bit like if I'm being glass half empty, it feels a little bit like, well, we know you're going to go down to 0 hit points a lot, so let's give you something to help out with that, right?
Yeah.
So now when that happens, you can heal. Instead of drop to 0, and then next turn you can go down to 0 hit points.
That's right, because now it's going to become prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't if we would have just been getting 4
keep it. Thank
4
you.
discipline points every time fight broke out.
Now
yeah.
you see, we're thinking
true.
the same way.
Now we need more key points than we did before.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it's okay. Honestly, I don't want to beat up on the capstone. It's an improvement to what we had. It's something that probably will come up. It's not as good as some other capstones, but compared to what the capstone was, big improvement.
Right. And that should be said. Okay. So I mean, that kind of gets us to the end of the base class. What have we missed, and or do you have any final thoughts that you haven't mentioned yet?
Yeah, so I mean, just to reiterate, feats being better for the monk was in the bag. Weapon mastery being a boon for the monk was in the bag. How did they mess those two up? Right? How did they mess those two up? Weapon mastery is such a fail. And they benefit from it less than the classes that aren't even warrior classes who get it. Yeah. Paladins and rangers and rogues are getting it. They're benefiting from it. And now you have this warrior class, and now tough. You're a monk. That's what you deserve. And it almost seems like design, like this whole thing with the feat qualification. And you look back on what they've done before and the prerequisites they set and what they did with the short sword, it almost looks like it was designed to make sure the monks didn't get access to the feats they need. And that is so discouraging because that suggests to me that the designers were deliberately putting roadblocks in front of monk players, and that one's kind of subtle, right? And that's what's really gross about that.
Right.
I'm
gonna hold out hope that they're gonna get feedback, and because everybody watching this video is gonna fill out the survey, right?
Yeah.
Although we should probably play test it.
Well, yeah. Though, and I should also say, there are buffs here as well.
There are.
And if I'm to look at the whole thing, like weapon mastery maybe doesn't add anything, but it doesn't take anything away.
Right.
So I look at the new monk and I think it's probably a wash.
Yeah, it might
right?
be a
Like
side
I'm
grade.
not sure it's weaker
Sure.
than the 2014 monk, but the problem is barbarians got a whole lot better.
Yes.
Fighters got a whole lot better.
Yes.
Monks did not get a whole lot better, and if they were already weaker than those classes, now we've got a bigger problem than
Right.
we've ever had.
Right. Because it's almost like
yeah.
they were like, okay, we recognize that there's this martial caster divide. We're going to try to bring martials up. I might argue that they haven't quite done enough, but we don't know that for sure yet. We haven't seen all the spells, right, etc. But we're going to bring all these martials up. Didn't release monks at the same time as fighters and barbarians. Maybe that should have been our first clue. That's like, why?
Yeah.
But yeah,
they were taking extra time to get it right.
Yeah, to leave them where it's sort of like some buffs, some nerfs, so it feels a little bit more like a side grade as opposed to, you know, all one way or the other. Is like, but everybody else, and we stayed here and we were already below. I'm gonna hold out hope that they're gonna get feedback, because everybody's gonna fill out their the survey.
I hope so.
And they're going to be like, okay, you know, they didn't want to. Here's my argument. Here's my hope, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here, that they didn't want to like over buff and then have to scale back, because that's always worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Than starting small and conservative and being like, okay, that wasn't enough. Let's bring it up, and then everybody's gonna be like, yeah,
but there was
like,
nothing.
They're great.
It wasn't like it wasn't enough. There's nothing. It's not like give me more. It's give me anything.
Well, okay.
I think first off, weapons. You cannot have it so that weapons are not good, right? If you're just going to make it an unarmed class, then it's kind of a waste. The idea is that you're supposed to mix, right? Like if you want to go all unarmed, great. But yeah, weapon mastery is a booby prize for choosing less damage.
Yes, I love
that.
I love my monks to be unarmed. I always want my monks to be just unarmed strikers, because that's the fantasy in my head.
But it shouldn't be better than using a weapon or worse than using a weapon. It should just be another choice you can make, and both ways work. Speaking of which, unarmed strikes need weapon mastery. Mm-hmm. They absolutely must have weapon mastery. You've turned it into their primary attack. You didn't give them the warrior ability that warriors are supposed to be based on.
Yep. And
cannot happen.
How cool would it be, and unique and like class defining, right? For this one class that's supposed to be like a martial artist specialist, to be able to do some of the things that other classes can only do with weapons, with their hands and their feet and their knees and their elbows, right? That's just cool. Like we should be able to trip. We should be able to attack more often. We should be able to push, right, with our body. Like that's the fantasy, and they didn't give it to us. That frustrates me.
Very frustrating. You know, did you watch the video or even see the video from Dungeons and Dragons YouTube channel on the Unearthed Arcana Monk and introducing it?
Yes.
Did you remember the thumbnail?
No.
All right. The thumbnail is of what is supposedly a monk fighting a tiger. And guess what weapon that monk is using?
A halberd or a
glaive.
Yeah.
A glaive. Yeah. but no martial weapons for you.
Yeah. Too bad. It was a monk who started as a fighter one.
Yeah. Monks absolutely must have access to the combat feats. Right? They just must. That must be put back. And then at level 11, the monk needs something big. I don't care what it is,
Yeah.
but something big. And if those
fighters are
things
getting a
aren't
third
taken
attack.
care of, I don't see the point of having the monk in the player's handbook.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I painfully must agree. And, you know, it really frustrated me. And I really like Jeremy Crawford. I don't know him personally,
Me too.
but
Me
he
too.
seems to be a great guy with great intentions.
Yeah.
But I remember the moment in that video when he was like, you know, they just didn't have enough damage. So we decided to take their
Yeah.
martial arts die and raise it up.
And he doesn't say
Almost
anything
like,
about weapons when
yeah,
he
he
does that.
doesn't.
No.
But almost like, and so like problem solved, you know? And
Yeah.
I'm just like, ugh, like we might be in trouble here because that's not enough. Like maybe there's more coming. I'm hoping there's more coming because like that is just one damage. And now, like you say, if we don't have martial weapon proficiency options or a way to get them even through
Now the rogue
race,
the first version of the rogue was terrible.
Yeah.
And now
And
they've come out with a new one and it's better.
Yep.
So we can hope that happens, but those are the things that need to happen.
Yeah.
Those are the things that need to happen. Weapons need to be made better. You need to be able to use your weapon masteries. You're a warrior. That's the point. Weapon mastery. That's the whole thing. That was the promise, right? I expect them to deliver on their promises to us. Unarmed strike should be able to do weapon mastery properties. They're a warrior. That's your promise. And level 11, they need something. And those feats, how dare you keep us away from those feats with our monks? That when we saw those feats, we're like, ooh, my monk can actually benefit from this. And then you took it away.
Yeah.
You must give that all back. You must.
I feel like after I read through all of the UA, my sense was kind of like, well, like at least we got the dancing part. That's the new monk.
Well, I actually like most of playtest 6.
Yeah.
Not everything, but I like most of it. But the base monk, hard fail.
Yeah.
And it's the worst. It like the first version of the rogue was poor. They got access to good feats. This is worse. This is worse than that.
Yeah.
It's a warrior without weapon mastery or the ability to use it in an effective way, and no access to combat feats. That's an insult. That's not a warrior. You got to fix it. Yeah.
So, but the subclasses are better, right?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
So,
I have better feeling about the subclasses than the base class for sure.
So everybody, after you're finished watching this, jump on over to Treantmonk's channel and check out part 2 of this series, which is us breaking down the subclasses. So we'll see you guys over there. Big thanks, Chris, for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, excited to continue the conversation.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Okay. See you guys. Oh, I need a haircut.
You're looking. I was about to say it's a good look. You're like kind of growing it out.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, you look more like a free spirit.
It's vacation. Yeah, people have commented actually on the one video that I posted since getting here so far. People are like, "Oh, like vacation looks good on you," or like, "Oh, the hair, da da da." You know, I'm like, I know, I want to cut it, but my wife doesn't want me to. So I'm
mine's getting a little bit. Feeling a bit like a hippie.
I'm begrudgingly letting it grow out. And some days I'm like, yeah, and some days I'm just like, but anyway, today's one of those days.